Hi friends, welcome to episode 37. Firstly, I apologise for not getting these out very quickly. My video editing software that I do for all of this is playing up a little bit and it's going really slowly. Anyway, talking about slowly, the cab with the RT, it is coming on, and I put that compass panel on last week. So yeah, and it does look like progress, I must admit. Now I've got that in, you start thinking, it's coming together. There is still a lot of work to do. Yeah, and they're all sort of fiddly things. So now it's going to be very sort of pedestrian, basically. I was hoping, as you're probably aware, to have the cab finished by the end of August. We're now almost at the last weekend of September. So it just goes to show how long these things take, especially if you're going to do it properly. If you want to bodge it and just chuck some paint over it, well, you can probably do that in a weekend, but I'm not doing that. I'm trying to do it as properly and as best as I possibly can. Anyway, the weather is now turning. It is 4 degrees outside. This week has been torrential rain, and it's quite damp up here at the moment. So yeah, torrential rain. Tomorrow it's Showbus. Now I had booked some buses in to go to Showbus, including my RM1069, but the weather's been so bad and it's predicted to rain tomorrow as well, as a result of which I'm probably not going to bother going and I'll stay up here. So we'll see how we get on with that one. This bus is going, Peter Figg's 1804, and also Nicks DM999 is going. So at least two buses I know going from here. So yeah, while they'll be up here today, hopefully polishing and cleaning their buses ready for Showbus tomorrow, I'll be getting on with the RT. So its turn might come next year, I hope, or maybe the year after that, or probably even the year after that one. Anyway, let's see how we get on, shall we? Hi friends, right, this weekend actually turned out to be a bit shorter than I'd actually planned for, but you know, that's the way things go. I hadn't intended to go to Showbus, but yeah, it was dull and miserable, and there was torrential rain in the week leading up to it, which led to quite a lot of flooding in Buckinghamshire and Hertfordshire. So Showbus wasn't looking like a good prospect, but in the end I think we had a little opportunity to pop up to Showbus, so I decided to do that in the end. But more on that later. Right, so this weekend consisted of just one day, the Saturday. Anyway, this was one job that I need to do to get cleared on the front of the bus. This is the outer wing. It sits just on the offside of the bus, just below the driver's cab. And as was mentioned by Brian, Roy and various others, this is sort of an immovable piece of metal. It's actually quite a nice little design, to be honest with you. But it still needs to be finished off, and I had painted it on the outside like I do with all my stuff, and I'd identified some little bits of damage, little dents and things that needed filling. So I've done that, and that needs to be resprayed now, and the inside also needs to be done. What I'm doing here is I'm using my multi-tool just to knock off some of the old hardened mastic. So yeah, it needs to be done. That shouldn't take too long. So luckily I'm not going to film the whole damn thing, but this gives you an idea of what I'm getting up to at the moment. Right, through the magic of video, we can now hop into the cab. So this is the cab floor. There's a few things that still need to go in there. One of the things is the rubber gaiter, and I know I showed that to you in a previous edition. I've just noticed there's a fly moving around in there. I just saw that a second. We'll see it in a minute again. But anyway, the rubber gaiter needs to go on. There it is, look. Okay, no wonder my paint's so bad, all these things landing in it. Anyway, so the rubber gaiter needs to go back on, and it fits down just over the handbrake pull just there, and then fits over that gap just down the bottom. Now I had actually repaired it. The last time you saw it, I had some tape I'd stuck on the back just to hold it in place while the glue was setting. So the glue's now set, and I've removed that tape. So there we are. I don't think you can get hold of them anymore, so I've had to make do with what I've got. It had worn quite badly at one end where the handbrake sits, because towards us here, this is handbrake applied, and you can see that little bit of damage on the gator there. That's where the handbrake is most of the time while the bus is in motion, and it had obviously cut its way through. So yeah, so that's another little job. I've still got a huge list of stuff I need to do in the cab, including wiring up that side light. So I'll try and clear that off this weekend. So anyway, there it is, fitted, and the little thing, the little gator put on there. So the floor's coming on quite nicely now. Right, so now I've got to do that headlight. It was 6 months ago when we took this thing apart. So what I'm doing now is I've got to cut these wires down to length. I always do wires over length. Last thing you want to do is pull the wires all the way through the conduit and then find out that they stop about a foot short. I don't really want connectors and stuff like that on them, so yeah, so I always do the wires a little bit over. So what I'm doing here now is I'm just preparing it to connect it back up with the connections for the lamp. The only thing with the connections for the lamp is, unhelpfully, other than the negative, they don't tell you which one is a full beam and which one is a dip beam. So I'm going to have to experiment with that and then swap the wires around to make sure they're in the right place. But the negative was quite clear, but the full beam and dip beam were totally well, a bit mysterious. But yeah, it's a good thing about one of these is that you have to use a few brain cells. Right, so anyway, so I've got the lamp, there's the connector at the end. You can see the wires. They are, as I said before, a wee bit mysterious. So here's a nice little job. I'm going to speed this up because you don't really need to see me sticking 3 wires into a multi-block, do you? Oh, or maybe you do, I don't know. Right, as if by magic, a little skip there. The lamp is now connected. Right, you notice just down the edge there, while we're talking about the, well, we're talking about the lamp, but you can see that's where the wing goes. We see all those holes are. Now, that bit of wood at the left hand going upwards, that's brand new wood. The bit at the bottom, which sits just underneath the headlight, is old wood. And where the holes, the screw holes, line up with the previous ones, I know I've got the panel in place. But where you've got new wood, it's difficult sometimes to, well, you've got no holes to line up, so you're not sure if it is in the right place. But it is fairly tight. Yep, whoops, nearly lost the lamp there. It is fairly tight against the side of the bus, so I'm fairly happy I've got them in the right place. I did also, later on, because I was being a bit fussy about that lamp, I noticed there was a couple of markers in there to indicate which way up the lamp is. And the lamp is correct, I've got it in the right position, but there was this little marker in there on the glass which showed sort of how it should be. So I got the laser out and I actually lasered it to make sure it was in exactly the right position. I do like the laser tool actually. I've been using it on the beading and stuff like that to make sure it's straight. On the outside, the cant rail, you can see, like, I'm looking at it, I'm not sure, it's not right. On the cant rail, that's the white band that runs out the outside. It varied so much. I've measured it on one, I can't remember what the measurements are now, but I measured one part of it and it was one sort of size, and then I measured another bit and it was a different size. So that white band that runs down the outside of the bus, it just varies. In the end of the day, no one's really going to bother too much about it because it's hardly noticeable. But when I'm putting the new beading back on, my plan is to get it as right as possible. Right, so here I am now with the laser tool, just trying to make sure that that little peg is lined up in the right place. Now I'm being really fussy and probably quite, it's probably too much to be doing this, to be quite honestly, but I wanted to make sure it was actually dead right. And if I get the other one absolutely dead right, you don't need MOTs on RTs. So it probably won't get picked up on a beam setter, and I don't think you can actually use modern beam setters on these because frankly they're too ancient, to be honest with you. But anyway, as I say, you don't need an MOT on this, so we shouldn't really need to be bothering getting it absolutely spot on. But I really did want to get it spot on, and I've got it now, I think, absolutely spot on. So there we are, bingo, done. So I did a bit more than fit a headlight and do some other bits and pieces, but I didn't bother to film everything I did. I made some beading up to go on that white band, which I mentioned earlier on. So having done that, but I wasn't too happy with that. Obviously we did the headlight. I did a few other bits and pieces, did the wing, which you saw earlier. Anyway, this might be a good opportunity, now we're down to dealing with all the little bits and pieces, to have a look back and see where we are now. So it's just over 6 months ago since I took the cab out and ended up with this pile of stuff, which is basically everything in the cab, laying on the floor. So it all needed to be rubbed down, painted, and then reinstated back into the cab. There are a few items that still need to be done. Let me just show you the pictures of the stuff that I did soon after I painted it, and I'll point out to you those bits I still need to put back in. So it's 6 months and it's taken an awful long time, far more than I expected it to take, but sadly that's the joys of an RT, and if you want to do it properly, that's the only way you can do it. You've got to do it properly. So anyway, here we are then. Let's have a look through what we've done thus far. Right, so the first thing you see at the bottom of this shot is part of the door mechanism. You remember I stripped all that down. That's just the runner that sits at the top of the bus. Now I didn't paint strip all this stuff. Some of it, if it was okay, I just simply rubbed it down. Yeah, maybe I could have paint stripped there. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure about that. But anyway, hey ho. Right, the next bit is that bar is part of the emergency window opening mechanism, and that got a good rub down. Now the square panel, that red black square panel there, that's actually from the conductor's locker area, and there's a couple of other components that from the conductor's area. The Textix holder, that went back in. That's what those three circular bits are, and the bracket that holds the Textix holder. It's got to be somewhere. The actual metal plate's got to be somewhere there. I'm sure we'll find it. Next to it is the starter switch assembly and the fuse gear. Then we've got some random conduit trunking, which for the electrical system, and then that big black box, that's the regulator. The one wire that hangs out the bottom is one that I couldn't actually get out because the terminals were fiercely fighting me trying to get them out. Then you got that little pot, that was part of that air intake mechanism which we spoke about before. The next bit, the next two bits actually, the tall tower looking thing and the little square box with the grating in it, they're part of the saloon. That is the lower deck floor heater, and then the tower thing is where the conductor puts his or her log cards and stuff like that, so it sits over the platform area. Then you can see the turret that the indicator stalk sits on, and towards the back there you can just about see the speedo and a few other bits and pieces. So let's move on to the next shot. Right, so visible in the shot is part of the cab heater. That's in. Then we've got the board that the bell sat on and the interrupter unit for the indicators. That's that black board there. That's done. The air intake we spoke about before. The top of the speedo box. That little thing with two prongs sticking out, that's the windscreen wiper assembly. So that's the only thing. I've got to wire that up actually. I just need to do that. I need to get a couple of bolts for that. And then we've got the mechanism just below for pushing out the lower cab window. The buses didn't actually need windscreen washers. I think windscreen washers would have been sort of an absolute luxury. I didn't have heaters to begin with, but and a result of that, you can actually present a bus for test without a windscreen washer, providing you can open the windscreen. So that's basically it. So you didn't need a wiper, I suppose, on that basis. So yeah, you can open them right up. Ideal in the summer, not so ideal in the winter. I wouldn't recommend it. But anyway, that's what that's for. Okay, so here is a rack of stuff that was drying. You can see that green thing, that's the cab door. Anyway, at the bottom there, I've got part of the cab door, that's in brown. I didn't like that brown in the end, that was the wrong brown. It was I think they call it the 1947 brown. It was the wrong brown, so I had to then respray all of this in the darker browns. But it's a lovely brown. It made me want to eat chocolate for some reason, but I'll forget it anyway. Right, so just above that brown panel at the bottom there is the upper cab window. And then on the next level up, I've got one of the things that I need to go back in the cab, and that's that knurled board. That's part of the sort of the grippy thing that's just on that plate as the driver climbs in. Then I've got various other bits and pieces. I won't go through all of them, you get bored. But then I've got that sort of rectangular black piece of metal there. That's the slipboard holder that goes on the front of the bus. It sits in a little thing at the that front bulkhead window where the passengers sit, and it'll have, you know, I don't know, to and from Croydon or something on it, or to and from the local fair. So that's what that was for. So that's all done now, and all that stuff, most of that stuff has now gone back into the cab, including the stuff that was at the top there. You can see yeah, you see brackets and bits and pieces, but you get my idea, don't you? Right, so Showbus returned after a brief respite. It's been around for 50 years, and it's one of the regular rallies that I attend. There's a couple I do. I like to do the Cobham Spring event, and I like to do Showbus. And Showbus over the years has moved around a little bit. I think that the best Showbus has been when it was at Duxford all those years back, but now it's moved to the Buckinghamshire Railway Centre, which is at Quainton, which is part of the original Metropolitan line many years ago. And a fascinating place. So yeah, so it moved there. Unfortunately for the organisers, and it's not their fault whatsoever, but the weather was horrid in the previous week running up to Showbus. And yeah, it was just torrential rain. Buckinghamshire got hit really badly. Milton Keynes and all of that area was reporting flooding. And of course, what happens when you have heavy rain on a field? You can't put anything heavy on it. And they checked the site, I believe, on the Saturday to make sure they could put some buses on it, and they weren't entirely sure. So what they tried to do was to cram everything in a very small space, and I know that upsets photographers who turn up hoping to get a picture of their favourite vehicle. But anyway, so everything was just crammed in wherever they could. Lots of moans and groans from people, but, you know, in all fairness, it's not the fault of the organisers. I think they did a blooming good job given the rather difficult situation they found themselves in. So anyway, this is Showbus. What I did notice was there aren't any RTs. Not a single RT turned up. I don't know if that's a first for Showbus, because I remember the last one we did, I was having a chat with an owner about the work he was doing, his restoration on his bus. But yeah, not a single RT. What a shame. But it was nice to meet many of my friends, and also to chat over about restoration and stuff like that. And a chap came up who watches these, who used to drive buses at Uxbridge. So hi to you. Yeah, it was a nice little event, and that's what I did it for. Now you may notice I said at the beginning of this I wasn't going to do Showbus. But Nick turned up to polish his bus, his DM, he is the owner of DM999, turned up on Saturday to polish his bus, and was there till quite late actually. We were both up the barn until about 7 o'clock in the evening. I say late, but it had gone dark by then. So yeah, he's polishing his bus, and he sort of, I said I'm 50-50 on it. And the more that we got into discussing Showbus, I decided it was time that, I'll do it, okay. So anyway, so I popped into work, grabbed the bus the next morning and headed off to Showbus. The great thing is, it was Nick's birthday, and he won an award for his DM. Now, I know people will sort of moan and groan about modern buses, and not such a modern bus now, are they, because they're over 50 years old themselves, but they were obviously a vehicle that pushed the RT and the RM out, but they are part of London's history. And when you look at things like Duxford, given the fact there are no RTs, there are a lot more modern buses on display. And I think we have to accept that as life moves on, people are going to be restoring arguably the sort of vehicles that they recall from their youths. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, RTs and RMs were part of my childhood. Not so interested in the more modern stuff. I can't tell you what it is, although I do run a few myself. But, you know, largely I think people just restore what they feel they were happiest with, and there's no problems with that whatsoever. And it's wonderful to see Nicks DM999, and I'm also so pleased for Nick that he won an award for his bus. So there we are. I think maybe someday a chat on where we're going with bus preservation, because as we all get older, things like RTs require a hell of a lot of effort. Modern buses that we have today, I always say a bus that's 15 years of age, you will find that some of the bits for them are no longer available, and you do need to have a different set of skills. RTs, without a shadow of a doubt, require a colossal amount of skill. You know, you've got woodwork, metalwork, you've got mechanics and everything. A route master is actually fairly simple, and if you was looking at buying a bus for preservation, I would always recommend a route master over an RT. An RT is a beautiful vehicle, don't get me wrong, a lovely bus, and I've got one and I've got 4 route masters. So but absolutely, if you were starting off in this, try and get yourself a route master. So anyway, right, I've got a weekend coming up now. I've got another one. This is Friday night when I'm doing this. So I've got a weekend to get started at down at the barn. I hopefully really do, because we're now in October, and I really do hope that I'm going to get an opportunity to finish all these fiddly bits off and then move round to do the bonnet and that front wing and all the rest of the bits and pieces I need to do. Okay, before you go, here is a quick look forward to episode 38, when I actually get round to powering up the cab electrics. Thank you for tuning in. I hope I haven't bored the pants off of you chatting about stuff that's probably not entirely relevant. But anyway, thank you very much, and it's look forward to doing the next one. And here's some things that YouTube will randomly recommend that you should watch.